Hello and welcome to the Daily News Analysis. Today we are discussing the newspaper of the 12th of January 2018. Coming to the first article, the road still runs through Ramallah. The opinion given is that advocating the Israel-Palestine peace process is vital for India to restore its influence in West Asia. Now, before we begin, I would like to talk about Ramallah. This is a Palestinian city in the central West Bank. It is 10 kilometers north to Jerusalem and it is the administrative capital of Palestine. Now, coming to the context of this editorial, the context is the recent to-come visit of Israel's Prime Minister, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu. This is in reciprocation to last year's visit by Prime Minister Modi to Israel, which is the first ever visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Israel. Also, this visit is coming in the aftermath of the recent United Nations General Assembly vote, where India has voted against the issue of Jerusalem being declared as the capital of Israel. So that is the context. Now, coming to some background of the entire issue between Israel and Palestine. First and foremost, Israel is a country in West Asia. This region shown in white is Israel. Now, coming to the background of the conflict. First and foremost, before the World War I, this region was under the occupation of the Ottoman Empire, and this resulted in settlements of more of Arabs in this region, and also to the exodus of the Jews from this region. The Jews left this region to settle in various parts of Europe. So that is one background. Now, what happened in the aftermath of World War I was that the Ottoman Empire was uprooted and the region came a mandate of the British, and as a result of which the British advocated for re-entry of Jews into this region. Now, the region has specific importance for Judaism because it has been mentioned as the promised land for the Jews. So that is why the region, this area is considered sacred by the Jews, especially because of the city of Jerusalem, which we will discuss later. So the Jews decided in the aftermath of the World War I that they should return back to the promised land, and many of the Jews did come back to this region. This itself was the birth of the conflict between the Arabs and the Jews, and this resulted in the 1937 British Peel Commission. This was the commission which for the first time advocated a two-state solution. So the solution has its genesis in 1937. However, this was not materialized, and later the situation turned into the World War II. Now, during World War II, what is the most horrific aspect of World War II has been the Holocaust, which has been the killings, the mass killings of several Jews by Germany specifically and in various other European countries. Approximately 60 lakh Jews are believed to have been killed in this Holocaust by Germany. So this resulted in a mass sympathy for the Jewish people, and a large number of these Jewish people decided to come back to their promised homeland, which was Israel, and they demanded that a particular Jewish country should be made for them. And it was in this respect that in the aftermath of the World War II, when the wave of decolonization started and new independent countries were being formed, in 1948, a two-state solution was brokered by the UN. This resulted in two countries, first being Israel and the second being Palestine. The region that you are seeing largely in white, this was what was advocated is going to be the Jewish state of Israel, and this small patch here, which is the Gaza Strip, and this region of West Bank was decided to be as Palestinian territory. So this was the two-state solution. However, right after the UN declaration of 1948, all the neighboring Arab countries, which included Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, all of them declared war on the just newly formed country Israel, and as a result of which Israel was surrounded all around by these belligerent countries. However, the newly formed small country Israel fought against all these countries and it won this war. And as soon as it won the 1948 war, Israel occupied a large territory that was initially in the two-state solution for Palestine. And approximately 78% of the territory of Palestine was just there and then occupied by Israel in the 1948 war. Later, The enmity against Israel continued, and this resulted in the 1967 Six-Day War. In the Six-Day War, all these countries were again planning to attack Israel. However, Israel preempted this attack, and before these countries could attack Israel, Israel reverted back and attacked these countries. This war lasted for 6 days and is one of the most epic wars in the history of all the global wars ever fought. It was in this war that this small country Israel occupied a large area of the West Bank, which was a part of Jordan. It occupied something called Golan Heights, which was a part of Syria. It occupied the Sinai Peninsula, which was a part of Egypt. So as a result of which Israel won, and it really expanded its territory. If you will see, the Sinai Peninsula itself is larger than the whole country Israel. So this was the achievement that Israel did achieve in the 1967 war, and after this Israel was considered as a country to reckon with. Globally its might was acknowledged. So that is the importance of the Six-Day War. Later, in the year 1978, there was a Treaty of Camp David, which is the peace treaty between Egypt and Israel. This is important because it was the first time that a Muslim country, that is Egypt, acknowledged Israel as an independent country and struck a deal with Israel. As per this deal, Israel returned the Sinai area back to Egypt in return for a promise of never to attack Israel again. Also, Israel was allowed to use the Suez Canal. Also, Israel was promised by Egypt that oil will be given to Israel by Egypt. So these were some features of this peace deal. Later in the year 1993, there was an Oslo Accord signed between the PLO. The PLO is the Palestinian Liberation Organization. This was the major organization which was fighting for the rights of of Palestine. So the PLO struck this deal, this peace accord with Israel. This was considered to be a historic event. However, this accord really couldn't materialize, and it died because it failed because of the death of the leader of PLO, Yasser Arafat, as well as the rise of Hamas, which is the terrorist organization. According to Israel, it's a terrorist organization, but it is an extremist group which is in control of the Gaza Strip region. So it was in this aftermath that the Oslo Accord failed. Now this resulted in major tensions between Israel and Palestine to continue, and in the aftermath of these tensions, there was a newer development where Israeli settlements started developing in the Western Bank by the government support. Also, the issue of Jerusalem is something that remained contentious because in the aftermath of the 1967 war, completely Jerusalem was taken over by Israel. Now coming to the Jerusalem problem. Now Jerusalem is one of the oldest cities in the world. It is one of the most revered holy grounds in the world. Now in the aftermath of the 1948 UN agreement on the two-state solution, Jerusalem was to be treated as an international city. So that is the importance of Jerusalem. It is at present divided into 4 quarters because it has religious sentimental value for particularly 4 religions. First is Christianity. There is a Church of Holy Sepulchre in this region. Now, it is important for Christianity because it is believed that Jesus Christ used to visit this place as a child. Also, it is believed that this is the place where Jesus Christ was crucified and also the site of his resurrection. So that is a sentimental and religious value to Christianity. Further, coming to Muslims, which forms the largest part of the 4 quarters in this city. For the Muslims, this is the 3rd most important religious place after Mecca and Medina. They have a dome of rock here and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It is believed that the Prophet Muhammad had visited this place after his visit to Medina, and he had prayed here with the souls of other prophets. So that is the emotional aspect and religious value for the Muslims. Further, this is the holiest site for Judaism and for the Jewish people. It has the remnants of the Western Wall, which are the remnants of the holy temple which once stood at this place. This was the holiest temple in Judaism. So this is the most sacred site for Judaism. That is why the importance of Jerusalem and Israel as the promised land. Also, a small sect, the pro-Catholic religion, Armenian, is important. It has the St. James Church, but the major conflict is basically between the Muslims and the Jews in this particular area. Further, coming to the issues that have been discussed in the editorial, first and foremost issue relating to the recent visit of the Prime Minister of Israel is that of de-hyphening of relations. Now, there is a shift in policy of India where it has de-hyphened Israel and Palestine. Initially, any relation with Israel was avoided in the backdrop that it could hurt the sentiments in Palestine and could go away from India's commitment to the two-state policy. But this policy has now been reversed, and India is separately dealing with its relationships with Israel as well as with Palestine. Also, on its stand regarding the two-state policy, it is not mixing these three issues, and so it has resulted in a de-hyphening of relations. So that is the first aspect. The second aspect is that bilateral ties with Israel is something that is close to India's concerns. First and foremost, Israel is responsible for 40% of Israel's defense exports are coming to India. So this is relevant for both the countries. Not only is India a major buyer for Israel, also for India, Israel is important because defense sector is something very critical for India. So that is one importance. Another is that India and Israel are cooperating on agriculture and water technology, where Israel has much superior knowledge as compared to India. Further, on issue of counter-terrorism, both these countries are cooperating. They are also commemorating the 26/11 Mumbai attacks through a remembrance ceremony in the coming visit of the Prime Minister of Israel. So these are the important bilateral issues related to bilateral ties. Further, coming to India's traditional stand on two-state policy, this is something that India has advocated primarily because this is something that has been brokered by the UN. Also, India has a large section of Muslim population itself, and so the cause of Palestine is something that is close to India as a result of large number of Muslim community. Also, the Prime Minister Modi is expected to soon go on a visit to Palestine. Further, it is also expected soon that the King of Jordan, King Abdullah II, will soon be visiting New Delhi. So it is in this context that India cannot take a completely one state policy stand, a stand that is completely in favor of Israel. Various players are involved in this issue, and so India stands to its two-state policy. Now, coming to the United Nations General Assembly vote, where India has voted against the issue of declaring Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Now, despite this vote against Israel, there have been a plethora of instances where India has supported Israel in the past. For example, in the year 2015, India abstained on a United Nations Human Rights Council resolution which criticized Israel for aerial bombing in Gaza. Also in 2016, in a resolution being passed in the UNESCO in Paris against Israel for encroachment of the Western Wall and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, India again abstained from voting. So India has continuously been reiterating its stand in the favor of the two-state policy. However, there have been instances where India is also supporting Israel. So that is a diplomatic conundrum for India. So this is one issue that has been analyzed in this particular editorial. Another thing is that there is an issue of comparison with Kashmir. Often Palestine is compared to Kashmir, and this policy of de-hyphening is something that other countries are following in the India-Pakistan relations. India has followed a policy, has advocated a policy of isolationism for Pakistan. This is something that has not got much of the world acknowledgement, where many countries are stressing on the fact that there is an urgent need to de-hyphen India-Pakistan relations and also separating them from Kashmir issue. So this is something that is a replication of the Israel-Palestine issue. So that is one analysis that has been drawn in this particular editorial. Also, the author has brought about an analysis where she says that there is a desire to reassert in India there is a desire to reassert its leadership role on a multilateral stage, and it is in this line, and also because of India's moral stance on peace process of Israel and Palestine, that India has voted against Israel. So India is aiming for leadership role in West Asia, and for that particular reason, India has stood its ground and voted against Israel despite the recent warming of relation between India and Israel. So that is one analysis that has been drawn. Now coming to some opinions, the first opinion is that of regarding the two-state policy itself. The author has advocated that Israel needs to opt for the two-state solution. Otherwise, it can result in a situation where Palestine will not agree to the two-state solution, and it will stress upon the one state solution, which will be Palestine, and this could have severe consequences for the peace in the West Asian region. So that has been advocated. Also, another aspect that has been advocated is that for India's prosperity, it might need to associate more with Jerusalem. But for India's leadership ambitions in the West Asia, the road needs to pass through Ramallah, which means that India needs to take into consideration the interests of the Palestinians. So that is the opinion which has been given. The article is important from international relations point of view, specific to Israel and India, also from the context of West Asia. So that's about this article. Coming to the next article, the ABC of RTE. The opinion given is that open-minded adoption of the RTE Act enabling provisions can radically transform school education. Now, the article is in the background of an analysis of the RTE Act itself. Coming to some background of the issue, the background is that free and compulsory education for 6 to 14 years of age became a fundamental right in the year 2002. This resulted in an addition of a new article, Article 21A to the Constitution by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now, despite this being a fundamental right, for many years this continued to be an enabling legislation where states had to make rules in this regard, rules and laws in this regard. However, it was in the year 2010 that the Right to Education Act came into being. And this is being hailed as a landmark and a game-changing legislation by the author in this particular piece of editorial. However, the context is that despite the fact that this is a game-changing legislation, it has not been implemented well. So the issues that have been highlighted are regarding poor implementation of the provisions of RTE itself. So the first issue that has been highlighted is that of a problem of retention of students vis-a-vis their enrollment. The author suggests that the primary focus under this act has for a long time been on enrolling number of students, but less focus has been given on retaining these students, especially in the vulnerable groups like girls, the disabled, the orphan, and those children who are coming from single parent families. Therefore, a strategy to ensure retention is the key rather than their enrollment. Solutions have to be localized and contextualized is what is being advocated as a solution to this problem. The second problem that is being highlighted is the problem of pupil-teacher ratio in the country. Some facts have been given, some data has been given. According to the Education Department data, under Unified District Information System for Education, and the database is prevalent, the database is of the year 2015 to 16. As per this, 33% of schools in the country do not have the requisite number of teachers. For example, there in a case of Bihar is given where only 16.67% of the schools have this a proper pupil teacher ratio maintained. So that is some fact that is important which can be quoted. And this is a major problem facing majority of the schools. An analysis has been drawn that this is primarily because the states are firstly unwilling to hire more teachers in view of the burden or the salary burden which the states have to face. So they are unwilling to employ newer teachers. That is one analysis. Another issue is that the teacher postings and teacher transfers is something that is a highly politicized matter in majority of the states. And it is largely a grey area which is leading to improper rationalization of teachers in schools, which is adversely affecting the pupil-teacher ratio. So a solution has been given is that teacher provisioning should be the first option to fund in any education policy, because the global experience also teaches us that sound schooling foundation cannot be based without a professionally motivated teaching cadre in place. So that is a good suggestion that has been given. The definitive funding has to focus largely upon presence of teachers. It is only if teachers are present that all other provisions of RTE can be implemented. If a teacher is absent, then any other provision related to an RTE, which might be, less of assessment, more of focusing on development, no detention policy. All these issues are secondary. The primary factor is that a teacher should be present. So that is what has been advocated. Another thing is that teacher postings need to be depoliticized in the country, which is a major problem that has been highlighted. The third problem that has been highlighted in this article, and which is the most important problem here, is that of inefficient decentralization. Not only this part is important in the analysis of RTE Act, this is also an important example in decentralization itself, and it can be used in a number of answers where you need to discuss upon decentralization. Now, the issues that have been raised are that for the academic calendar, it is mandatory under the RTE Act that this be made as per the rules and norms of the local bodies, which shall be the panchayat. However, this has not happened in practice. Now, the importance of this is that some local festivals, sowing and harvesting seasons, and even for that matter some natural calamities are something that are specific to a particular region, and it is in this respect that the local bodies can best understand the time as to when holidays are needed by the students and when they should be studying. So that is an analysis that has been drawn. Also, the author has suggested that this is going to result in greater attendance in schools. Also, this will result in greater participation by the panchayats in the functioning of the school. So this is something that can have huge impacts on the better implementation of the RTE Act. This is what has been advocated. An opinion has been given, which is that a law is as good as its implementation. So it is not that the RTE Act, which has been criticized on many fronts, is that it is not the RTE Act which is flawed, but rather it is the implementation of this law which needs to be questioned, because for a long time these important aspects of the law have not been properly implemented. So that is the crux of this editorial. The editorial is important in discussing decentralization, like I mentioned. It is also important in a direct analysis of the Right to Education Act, also a broader analysis related to education. You can use this particular article. So that is the importance of this. Coming to the next article, is radio relevant in the 21st century? Being a Friday, this is the yes, no, it's complicated article on the Hindu. Now, the topic might not seem directly very important, so we will just discuss it in brief, but it can become important in discussing Prasar Bharati, which is the public broadcaster. It was formed in the year 1997. It could be important from that point of view. And in some cases, UPSC at times can ask some different questions. So that is why this article I am discussing. First and foremost is the argument that yes, the radio continues to be relevant. First is the historical analysis that has been given, which says that when TV came into being, radio was questioned and it was said that radio was going to die. Also, when rock and roll music came, at that point of time it was believed that the classical music is going to go. So history teaches us that such kind of analysis are soon drawn by people, but this is not the truth, and this doesn't really happen in practice. The second point is that radio caters to a vast population, which is not the benefit that is being given to other platforms like the internet, and for that matter even television. Especially in India, a large number of rural India is still adhering to radio. So that is one reason that that radio is of relevance today. Also, the author advocates that it is the most inexpensive and portable medium. A radio set today can be obtained for cost as low as rupees 50. However, a mobile phone is something that is going to be expensive than this. A TV is going to be expensive. So it is definitely one of the most inexpensive media for entertainment as well as for information. Also, in India, there are a lot of barriers of literacy present because a large section of the population is illiterate. So radio serves as a primary and a major source of disseminating information because it is only based upon the audio medium. If television is to be used, in that case the news channels have a lot of written material which could act as a barrier to literacy. So that has been advocated here. Another thing is that of cost of content creation on radio is the least, and this can allow a number of newer programs to come up on the radio which might become difficult for other fora like television. Also, Radio caters to a variety of languages, and India being a multilinguistic country, it is of utmost importance. Approximately 180 languages are covered under the radio. These languages do not find space on televisions, and so that is the importance of radio. Also, radio being a simple technology is something, it is very easy to make a broadcaster as well as a transmitter, and so it is the most important means that is used during activist and people's movement. Another thing is that of its importance in disasters. This was recently seen in the 2013 Uttarakhand floods, where all other medium of communication was shattered, and it was the radio which came to the rescue. Further, the radio can be used as a customized content, and it can give a personalized experience, because this being a solely audio program, it leaves a scope for the self imagination by a person, which is not the case with other media like the internet and television, where a person has to see what is being given by the channel itself and does not use his self imagination. So that is one aspect. Now coming to the second analysis, where the author says that no, the radio is no more relevant in today's time. First and foremost, he advocates that this is an ancient technology which has been replaced, and definitely it has to die its death. Another thing is that the newer facilities with internet are something that the radio cannot match. On internet, a person can have his own channel rather than tuning into channels where one is forced to watch what one watches. Another thing is regarding the music programs on internet, and there are various apps that are available where one can customize one's preferences. This is not the case with radio. Another thing is that today the radio in India is largely limited to Bollywood music, and it is only for commutation purposes, where people who are commuting for work are listening to radio. Otherwise, it has no relevance. Further, there are falling data prices in the aftermath of internet revolution in the country, and in this backdrop, radio will have little significance in the future. Further, there are issues of permission for broadcasting news on the radio, as at present only the All India Radio is allowed to broadcast news, and no other radio channel is allowed to broadcast news as per government norms, which is in which the government cites is due to security concerns. So because of this, the radio has largely become a useless platform, because many channels are not allowed to give information that is useful. Further, there is no relevance of radio to the youth. It is only catering to a small population, which is that of the aging citizenry in the country. That has been one issue. Another thing is that even after revamping it, it will depend on the internet for dissemination of its technology, and as a result of which, in any case, internet has wiped away radio from our systems. So that is what has been advocated. Now coming to the third opinion, that it is complicated. Now I have not mentioned the repetitive points. So some challenges that have been raised under this aspect are, first and foremost, definitely one needs to acknowledge that radio is indeed faced by a stiff competition, both from internet as well as television media. So that is one issue. Another thing is that of issue of assessment. Now, because of no scientific technology which can assess the clientele that is adhering to radio, there is no scientific assessment of its penetration, and as a result of which, the large number of analysis that are drawn are largely perception based. So that is one issue. Another thing is that of monopoly of government in this regard. As I mentioned before, that news items was something that the government was not allowing radio channels to broadcast. So that is something that results in the monopoly of the government in this sector. Also, there is an issue of licensing fee, which the author claims is very, very high for a particular channel, and this makes radios a not very profitable pursuit, and this can result in the media getting choked. Also, there is an idea of different genres. Many foreign countries have different genres in radio. For example, news, devotion, child, women, for that matter, one genre could be even Bollywood. This kind of idea does not exist in India. So that model is something that India could adopt. Another thing is that there should be content-based fee. For example, if a channel is catering to a special sector, for example, it is catering to children-related programs or specifically women-related programs, in that case, the channel should be charged lesser fee. Such kind of flexible programs should be there, but they do not exist. Now, as I mentioned before, if in any case you have an analysis on Prasar Bharati, there this article can have some importance. Otherwise, a question on this might not directly be relevant for UPSC. Coming to the next article, a needless pursuit. The context is that the government of India is demanding for obtaining official language status for Hindi at the UN. So that is the context. Coming to the background is that in the US, initially only English and French were the two official languages that were recognized. Later, three more languages, the Chinese, Russian, and Spanish, too were recognized. And in the year 1973, Arabic was also recognized. So at present, there are 6 official languages in the UN: English, French, Russian, Spanish, and Chinese. So these are the languages, and also Arabic. Now, the issues relating to this demand by India is, first and foremost, from one aspect, this is a good demand because it will result in increasing the stature of Hindi language. Also, it will promote the higher usage of Hindi language on an international fora. So that is why it is important. However, some concerns have been raised. The first concern is that this will result in a gross wastage of resources, as India will have to fund the required translation and interpretation work in the UN, which is not something that is very much viable, and even if it is viable for India, it is not something that is very much advocated. Another thing is that of burdening of the UN Secretariat, because it has time and again been issues have been raised that the UN Secretariat is highly burdened because of this translation and interpretation work. So that is something that is important. Another aspect is that multilingualism is something that India has always taken pride in. Also, Hindi is not even the official language of the country. We have many official languages. So in this regard, why should India favor one particular language over other languages when India takes pride in its pluralism and its multilingualism? So that is one analysis. Another aspect is that there are many other languages like Bengali. This the issue has been raised by Bangladesh, where it has demanded that Bengali should be recognized as an official language in the UN. Similarly, in the future, Tamil can be, demanding an official language status in the US, considering that it is also the language in Sri Lanka. So these kind of issues are continuously erupting, and India should not have. This has been advocated in the editorial that India should not have very actively wanted or pursued for this demand. So that is the opinion. Coming to the next article, towards stability, Nepal must hasten the process of government formation. Now, first and foremost, I would like to mention that this topic has been discussed in very much detail in our discussion of the 28th of December 2017, where there was an article on the post-polls Chalpal in Nepal. This was an important article on that day, and a full in-depth analysis of Nepal and all the issues related to the election process were discussed. So I would suggest that for this particular article, you should refer to that video. Some new points which have been added are that there is a problem in Nepal. Now, some background I'll give you just for explanation purposes. That in Nepal, this has been a watershed year. 2017 has been a watershed year because it is in this year that 3 elections, the elections to the federal elections, the provincial elections, as well as the local elections have been conducted. And the UML has emerged as the party in majority, along with the Maoists. These two parties have formed something called as the Left Alliance, and it is this Left Alliance which is set to form the government. However, despite the fact that this has emerged in majority, power transfer cannot happen, has not happened till now, and the Prime Minister to be Mr. KP Oli has still not assumed office. Now, this is because of some constitutional nitty-gritties and some problems in the implementation work in the aftermath of election. So those have been discussed in detail in that article. One problem that is new in this article is that the provinces have a problem of deciding as to the capital of each province. This has become a contentious issue in Nepal, and to resolve this particular issue, it has been advocated that governments should be formed for now in all the provinces. Governments should be formed, and they should not decide upon the capital as soon as they take office. Rather, they should take some time to decide upon this topic. So this is one contentious topic that has been raised in this particular article. All the other topics related to the elections to the National Assembly, the issue of the 33% women reservation, and appointing of governors to the 7 provinces. So all of these issues we have discussed in the 28th December article, which I would suggest you all should go and watch. So before we end, some piece of information. We are starting a UPSC prelims cum mains classes from the 21st of January 2018. We shall be covering all basics, which shall include NCRT's daily newspaper, prelims test series and mains answer writing. So all interested candidates, please get in touch with us. These are our contact details. This is the phone number. So with this, we finish today's discussion. I thank you all for watching and I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you.